3, 2, 1.
Okay, I'd like to call the Pierce County Council's special study session for January 6, 2025 to order. The time is 12:32. And I would like to say good afternoon. And we will kind of do introductions here. I will start it off. I am Councilmember Morrell, and on behalf of the County Council, I am acting chair, and I represent District 1. I want to thank the Pierce County Legislative Delegation for making time to join us today. I know you're incredibly busy gearing up for what will be a challenging season. We are very appreciative of the opportunity to discuss Pierce County's top priorities for the session and to hear what is on your mind. The council is also joined today by County Executive Ryan Mello. And Mr. Executive, would you like to make some opening remarks?
Well, thank you, Councilmember Morrell. I don't know if the council is as eager to see me back in council chambers as I am to be back, but Happy New Year. It's in all seriousness, great to see these hardworking local public servants. Thank you. I also want to extend my gratitude to our really amazing and effective legislative delegation. You are incredibly busy, pulled in so many different directions. And we just want to send our gratitude to you for focusing so much on the needs and priorities of our shared constituents and our shared priorities here at home in Pierce County. We thank you for your time. We're eager to share with you some of the challenges and opportunities that we've been thinking about for some time that we know you will find important. So thank you for making time to hear from us. We look forward to going into some detail today and in even more detail in the coming weeks alongside with you as we work to tackle some of the most pressing challenges facing our shared constituents and our community. So thank you, Councilman Morrell, for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. First of all, I'd like to give each member of the council the opportunity to introduce themselves and an opportunity of our honored guests to also introduce themselves from the delegation. So I'll start with Council District number 2, and we'll just kind of move down the line in chronological order, skipping Council District number 5. So we'll start with that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Paul Herrera from Pierce County Council District 2. It's good to be here today. I represent Edgewood, Milton, Sumner, Puyallup, and South Hill areas, and looking forward to talking to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
I missed Puyallup, didn't I?
Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. Amy Krueger with Council District 3. I have Legislative District 2 and 27, 28, and I believe 29 as well in my district. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Krueger. Our newest member, Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Rosie Ayala representing District 4. This is large parts of Tacoma, University Place, and Fircrest overlapping with LDs 27, 28, and 29.
Thank you. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Janie Hitchin representing District 6, Lakewood, DuPont, Steilacoom, Ketron, Anderson, McNeil Island, and Parkland and Joint Base Lewis McChord, and overlap predominantly with District 28 and a portion of District 29.
Councilmember Denson.
Thank you, Chair. Robin Denson, District 7. So I have North Tacoma, West Tacoma, Reston, and everything on the other side of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, so Gig Harbor, Key Peninsula. I have Legislative District 26 and part of Legislative District 27.
Thank you. And that is all the council members that are present. If we want to go in and take a look at who's here from the Pierce County delegation.
The folder. I can't see from here. Funny.
Okay. Since the delegation is all on Zoom, if you'd like to make introductions, just raise your hands and we will move down the list as efficiently as possible.
Just do Bronson.
You know, call on people.
Yes, sir. You're looking for who's panelists. So we have Bernosky, Mina, Jenkins, Conway, Marshall, Calders.
So, Mr. Chairman, I suggest you just call on the
Yeah.
individuals in the order
Let's,
that they
let's
have
call
on
on
the screen.
them to the delegation to make their own introduction.
There we go.
So just bring them up in whatever order you
Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna start with Mr. Bernosky.
Hello, good afternoon. Representative Dan Bernowski from the 28th Legislative District, which covers Pierce County Districts 3, 4, and 6. It's a pleasure to be here.
Next, we have Mina.
Good afternoon, everybody. Representative Charlotte Mena from the 29th Legislative District, and happy to overlap with so many of y'all, and thanks for hosting this meeting today.
Next, we have Jenkins.
Hi, Lori Jenkins. I represent the 27th Legislative District and also happy to overlap with a number of you. And Councilmember Cruver, I heard you say the 27th. I didn't realize part of District 2 was in the 27th, so I'll have to I'll have to look at that again. So thank you for
I'll
that.
have to look too.
Okay.
And next, we have Conway.
State Senator Steve Conway representing the 29th Legislative District. That's largely South Tacoma, East Tacoma, and Parkland areas. So we overlap with many of you. Thank you.
Wait, I lost my hand. We're just gonna go to Royer.
Hi, LJ Rohr, assistant to State Representative Michelle Caldier. She's from the 26th Legislative District, which represents Gig Harbor and Kitsap and Pierce counties areas. Thank you.
Next, we have Marshall.
Representative-elect Marshall, second legislative district, just happy to be here. Thank you.
Next, we have Gilden.
Well, good afternoon. Chris Gildon, your senator for the 25th Legislative District, which is centered in Puyallup.
And lastly, Ms. Nobles.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Senator Tawana Nobles. I represent the 28th Legislative District and happy to see my county council member, Rosie Ayala, here today, but I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
And I'm trying to move over Levitt as soon as she joins. If there's any other representatives that are still in the attendees, please raise your hand. I'll get you moved over. But all we have is Levitt, and then that is it, sir. Oh, we have one other hand. Chris
Dawson.
Yes. Chris. Deborah, go ahead. All right, it looks like Levitt has raised their hand and will be joining as a panelist. We're gonna jump to Levitt for an introduction.
Good afternoon, all. Mari Levitt, representing the beautiful 28th Legislative District with my colleagues, Rep. Bernowski and Senator Nobles. Great to see you all.
And then Krishna is back.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Deb Krishna-Dawson from the 26th District, representing south of Bremerton, South Kitsap, Gig Harbor, Key Peninsula. pleasure to be here today.
And at this time, I see no other hands, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate all of you making time in your busy schedule. So what we'll do is we'll move forward, and the council and the executive would now like to highlight some of the top priorities of Pierce County for the session. The council and executive will work together as a team in presenting these priorities. The three highest priorities that the council has is funding local government, essential service, indigent defense caseload standards, and behavioral health. I'll turn to Executive Mello to get us started on local government funding.
Thank you, Councilmember Morell, and thank you again to our delegation members for your interest in collaborating with us on our highest priorities. I will kick it off with our highest priority, and that is securing new shared revenue from the state to deliver statutorily mandated and essential public services. Of course, those essential public services are things like elections, public defense, public safety, and criminal justice. Securing new shared revenue to close the gap on delivering these services to our shared constituents is our top priority. I'm going to share a few different numbers. If you remember no other number from our time together this afternoon, please remember $20 million. $20 million. That is the gap that we have for statutorily mandated services given to us by the legislature and essential public services where we do not have revenue to cover. So if you remember nothing else, remember $20 million. I want to share that 76% of our general fund expenditures in Pierce County are related to public safety or criminal justice. And for 2025 alone, the previous executive, in the budget that he delivered to the county council and that we ended up adopting under the previous executive's leadership, for 2025 alone, we had to transfer $36 million of reserves in order to balance our budget to do essential services, right? These aren't new, shiny programs. These are core public services like public safety, like prosecutors and public defenders, courts, sheriff's deputies, deputies who staff our jail, right? These are core public services. And of course, things like elections. So we had to transfer from our reserve $36 million in order to balance our budget and continue to keep Pierce County operating. So in order to keep us financially solvent, we are requesting that the legislature help us find new shared revenues that total at least $20 million. Of course, these are just these core public services. We know we have lots of other shared priorities around bolstering the safety net, around homelessness response, affordable housing, et cetera. These are just for these core public services to help us close the budget gap for $20 million. This assumes no new mandates are placed on local governments. That $20 million does. No new mandates such as indigent caseload standards, which we will get into a little bit more detail here in just a little bit. So I want to stress, because of our current budget situation, we are not starting new programs. These services that we are delivering and that we need help paying for are current statutorily mandated services by you, the state legislature, that are directs us to deliver, or just very related core services. Again, things like sheriffs, deputies on the street, or staffing our jail, our courts, our prosecutors, our public defenders, et cetera. These are not nice to haves. These are need to haves to keep Pierce County operating and our community safe and vibrant. We're asking the legislature, as you consider new revenue to bolster K-12 education and meet your your mandates and expectations there, or other state essential services, we're asking that as you consider new revenue for yourselves, that at the same time in those same bills, you consider a portion of those to come directly to local government so that we too can pay our bills and deliver these statutorily mandated core public services at the local level with our shared constituents. And as you do your budgeting and look at any potential new revenue and your budgeting, again, I just ask you to keep in mind $20 million. So as you're doing your math, and that's $20 million for Pierce County, you have 39 counties that you are responsible for. But as you're doing the math and looking at new revenue for the state, I really ask you to think about not only new revenue for the state, but new revenue shared with your local governments, your counties, who are agents of the state delivering these core public services on your behalf. We're calling on the legislature to help us pay for our court backlog. Specifically, we still have significant prosecutor costs where we had a significant backlog of criminal cases during the pandemic that we are still working our way through. I think all of you have appreciation for how big the criminal backlog got through the pandemic. That takes time to work through. And we have prosecutors dedicated to that backlog. And we used American Rescue Plan Act dollars for those prosecution services. But those dollars are running out. That bill alone is $3 million for prosecutors to keep working through the backlog of cases that got on top of us during the pandemic. Another example, we're calling on the legislature to help us with a $2.5 million bill. Again, a $2.5 million bill to help us pay for complex litigation as a result of state law changes that the legislature recently made related to the statute of limitations that are impacting our local government for potential litigation at our juvenile justice facility, you all know as Reman Hall. So we have a $2.5 million bill because of recent state law change related to statute of limitations that we're having to figure out how to pay for. And we really need your help in helping to pay that bill related to that state law change, where there were no dollars from the state that got transferred to local government to accommodate that statute of limitations change that the legislature made recently. We're asking you to protect all current shared revenue from the state. There is existing shared revenue, as you know, some of it in the human services space. So the homelessness document recording fee, there is a portion that is passed through to local government. As you know, we make really wise use of those dollars for some sheltering and the homelessness response system. We ask you, as you make very difficult budget decisions yourself this session, to please protect those shared revenues in the space of human services and safety net funding and other shared revenues related to criminal justice and other delegated responsibilities that you delegate to county government. An example of a shared revenue, revenues can look like any number of things. And one of them is public defense. And we want to point something out for historical context. Some of you have been in the legislature for some time, and you might remember, for example, public defense, a statutorily mandated service that counties provide to indigent folks caught up in the criminal justice system. We are mandated to provide their public defense. In 2004, the state paid 15%, 15% of the costs of public defense. The county paid the rest, 85%. Today, the state only shares 3% of the delivery of statutorily mandated public defense. Just 3%. So today, in real numbers, Pierce County alone receives $650,000 from the state of Washington. That's 3% of our public defense costs, for a total public defense office budget that costs Pierce County $24 million to provide public defense for those who are indigent, caught up in the public defense system. So I just wanted to really break that down for you as a real example of why more shared revenue is needed and how we have lost significant share over the last 20 years of shared revenue to deliver core public services like keeping our communities safe. We know that the governor-elect has a proposal in front of the legislature for at least $100 million for public safety to hire new police officers. We ask that you consider that very seriously. And when you consider that, all money is green. We certainly need help paying for sheriff's deputies. We could certainly use our share of that $100 million to pay our costs related to sheriff's deputies. We ask you to think about public safety and that bill that the governor is sending you around public safety, $100 million for public safety. We ask you to consider that more broadly. There is more to public safety than just sheriff's deputies, right? There's a whole system that goes into keeping our communities safe: courts and prosecutors and public defense and sheriff deputies that maintain the jail. So it's an entire system when we're talking about public safety. But more to the point, when we're talking about shared revenue, we really implore the legislature to think about, please keep as few strings attached to the money as possible. We know best about how to spend these dollars to keep our communities safe. For this example, $100 million that the governor-elect is asking you to consider for public safety, we ask you to keep it simple. Keep it simple on your end for administration costs, and keep it simple on our end. So consider that $100 million grant for public safety costs. Think of it as a formula grant, a per capita formula grant to be distributed to counties and local governments to deliver public safety as they know best. Some folks might need more prosecutors to keep their communities safe. Some folks might need more cops. Some folks might need more folks staffing their local jail. But put it in the form of a block grant that local governments can receive expeditiously and put it on the street faster. It'll save you money for administering it, and it'll help us administer it more quickly. The last note I have about shared revenue is we have a joint priority of our friends and partners at the city of Tacoma. One of their major priorities, if you have not heard of it already, is a $9 million ask to help keep their homeless shelter system intact. But they're moving through their American Rescue Plan Act dollars to support their homeless sheltering system. If they don't come up with another $9 million that they're asking the legislature to step in and support, then 300 shelter beds for seniors and families, young adults and veterans will really go away overnight. 300 shelter beds in a time where we know homelessness is on the rise, and year over year, we have a 23% increase in people experiencing homelessness. So we fully support the $9 million request from the city of Tacoma for sheltering services, because our entire community is better when the city of Tacoma can continue to provide the robust homelessness response system they are providing, right? They are providing close to 80% of the homelessness response for the entire Pierce County, even though they're only about 25% of the population. So we really need the city of Tacoma to continue to have the resources to keep the sheltering system intact. So again, I threw a lot of numbers at you. If you remember any number at all, please remember $20 million is what we need to find together from the state in the form of shared revenue or new revenue options so that we can continue to deliver statutorily mandated and core public services like public safety. I'll have more remarks, Councilmember Morell, about indigent defense when you're ready, but thank you for letting me share about some of our specific priorities related to $20 million in shared revenue from the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Mello. I will highlight one of your comments that you made as Pierce County's been able to balance their budget because we did have a significant surplus that we've maintained due to fiscal discipline. But we cannot continue to take $36 million out of our reserve, budget after budget, and be sustainable. So at some point, we will come to that financial cliff that everyone speaks about. But at least the county has done very well up to this point to keep a reserve balance. So with that, thank you for those comments, Executive Mello. I'll now turn to Councilmember Hitchin, who is going to discuss the county behavioral health priorities. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for joining us today, and excited to share some of our behavioral health priorities on behalf of Pierce County Council and the executive. We have our 6 kind of main talking points. I'm just going to go through them to provide a little bit of context. So first, I want to thank the work of the legislature that they've already kind of daylighted that they're talking about doing as they move forward. And one of the things that we are excited about is the possibility of both the existing and expansion of the certified community behavioral health clinics in Pierce County. They've been doing good work for us, and just continuing that work and making sure that they can continue to provide services for many of our residents that need behavioral health services. And our county, as you all know, is very unique geographically, so accessing behavioral health services is super important. We also support the state funding pilot programs to allow first responders to administer buprenorphine to treat pain and opioid use disorder. I think that's a really good first step, because when people are in crisis, have called 911 and they are needing support, being able to offer that support right then and there and allow them to experience what that can do might be that step that actually helps them make some different choices as they move forward. And so I would really applaud being able to use that as a pilot program to see if we can make some headway in there. We, of course, also would love to continue our really successful recovery navigator positions that are funded by the state. We recently heard about them during a public safety meeting, and they came and spoke with us. And the work that they are doing here in Pierce County has been phenomenal. And one of the things that we know when people are attempting to access supportive services to deal with substance use disorder is that it's not just the substance use that can be barriers to them. And the Navigator program helps them with all the things that help them on that pathway of being healthy, contributing members of our community. So would really love to see that continue moving forward. And I know it's one of the things that is currently being discussed as being removed. So we would love to see it continue. Another one, and this is a $5 million ask. We request funding to support the establishment and operation of our existing and new therapeutic courts. So as we've discussed, we really look at so many of our different programs and how we can help people find the right pathway, and our therapeutic courts really can meet people that have entered our justice system through a lot of different paths. And if it happens to be associated with substance use disorder or behavioral health problem, our therapeutic courts are doing really great work, and we would love support there. In addition, Pierce County was not funded by the state to continue the True Blood funding, and I didn't understand why Pierce County was left off the list, but we did not receive funding like several of our other counties, and so would love to have Pierce County continue to receive True Blood dollars as we move forward into the biennium. We are also, and this is more a policy suggestion, we truly are very interested in how we can do 24/7, 365 behavioral health crisis services. And so, and I'm going to throw a bill number, the engrossed second substitute House Bill 1134 from 2023 started to really think about how that could work with the Healthcare Authority, and we really hope that you will continue that thinking of how that could work. Those crisis happen 24/7 every day of the year. And so those crisis service providers are incredibly important, especially in a county our size. And we believe that the engrossed second substitute House Bill 1515 from 2023 is a start to reviewing if behavioral health and physical health integration efforts have been fruitful. We've been hearing a lot from providers in our county, and there have been concerns for our county because we did things a little bit differently. So really trying to figure out how we can be effective for our Pierce County residents, and the burden on behavioral health providers as far as that work goes. And that bill started that conversation, and we solely would love to continue that conversation and see if we can find it. The continued focus on coordination of behavioral health services and payment structures, including the need for managed care organizations, reprocurement, are needed at the state level. And we will send these all to you in writing so that you can go from there. So, but just really, truly appreciate the work that you've done there. We are very serious about working with our community members and our providers around behavioral health, including substance use disorder, because the impacts countywide on our families and residents is felt in every nook and cranny of our county. And so we're going to be working really hard with our behavioral health dollars here at the county, in partnership with the state, to see what we can do, and anything you can do to help to work with us there would be much appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Hitchin, for addressing those priorities. Within local government, we obviously have a lot of priorities, but we've tried to limit it down. And so, Councilmember Denson, can you please discuss childcare access?
Yes, thank you, Chair Morrell, and thank you all who've taken the time to be here with us today. I don't think that there is a single area in Pierce County, or probably a single area in the United States, or certainly the state of Washington, that is not struggling with childcare accessibility. We certainly hear that often from our constituents, and I'm sure that you are hearing that as well. This is a challenging business, a challenging nonprofit, often operation to run, and there's lots of challenges on the road to creating childcare facilities. We recognize that. I work with organizations both in the rural and urban areas that are working their way through the many barriers. So in our legislative agenda, we've really asked that you think about ways that we can reduce barriers to licensing and siting. And siting in particular, especially in rural areas, but everywhere, is a real challenge that we'd really like some help chipping away at. I like to come with solutions for you. I know that you're working on lots of different issues. We want to make this as easy as possible. So we worked with our local Pierce County Fire Marshal and building official. And one thing that they have said would really, really help is to give local building officials the authority to determine occupant loads for existing buildings that are interested in doing childcare. Typically, you'll probably recognize this as being community centers, churches. These are great buildings, already really well set up. They often have classrooms, they often have playgrounds, they often have kitchens and parking lots, all of the things that childcare facilities need. There's all sorts of issues that come up with siting, but one issue that you could really help us with, and that would not cost you any money at all, is to really make sure that our local building officials that live in the community, that are responsible for the health and safety of our people, have the authority to determine occupant load. And we can provide you with some additional information if you're interested. It's our understanding that the state building code does give the authority to local building officials if they'd like to revise occupant loads, but that the Department of Children and Families has been hesitant to recognize those revised numbers. And that is where the challenge has come. So again, our people here in Pierce County, our fire marshal, our building official, are willing to determine that occupant load, in compliance with state law. We just really need the clarification that that is going to be recognized so that these childcare facilities can overcome that one barrier, and that would be a significant step forward in the siting of these facilities. And I believe that Representative Levitt has a question or comment.
Okay, I will open it up to a comment from Representative Levitt at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, council member, for raising childcare. I think we all agree that it's a huge workforce challenge. We don't have enough childcare facilities. One of the things that we talked about over the interim and have learned in Pierce County is that there are, Lakewood being a good example of a jurisdiction that only allowed childcare centers in a very small area across the city. And so had to change their zoning, or were in the process of changing their zoning requirements to allow broader opportunities of setting up childcare facilities. And my understanding is Pierce County also has been a little bit of a barrier in terms of siting across Pierce County to open up opportunities for childcare facilities. Happy to talk to DCYF and pose this question if you want to send on some information, but just curious how Pierce County has addressed that zoning challenge that has bubbled up, both in conversation at the SSMCP meeting recently, in addition to other areas that I've been in Pierce County meetings on. Thank you.
I can respond a little bit, and then probably the folks that represent Lakewood have more information. You are right. There's, as I mentioned, all sorts of issues, from zoning issues to water and fire flow. And so, I mean, there is no dearth of issues. So we're just trying to pick at the ones that are the lowest hanging fruit that we can address. The zoning issue, you're absolutely right, Representative Levitt, is ours. Look, we own that. Not only are there zoning issues probably countywide, but we even have community plans. I know in Gig Harbor, it's particularly restrictive as well. So these are things that we need to address as a county, and I know that we are committed to doing our part. The issue with occupancy load, and thank you so much for agreeing to reach out to DCF, and I'll send you kind of the exact issue we're having, is something that we need the state's help with. So we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for those comments, those questions, and we'll follow up with more information on that. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Denson. I will move to Councilmember Herrera, who will talk about the dependence by, their exposure to controlled substance, since we're on the subject of children.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And yeah, this is really important. Endangerment with a controlled substance. A little background on it, RCW 9A42-100, which is it's already established law right now, which is a Class B felony for anybody unknowingly exposing a child or any type of dependent for methamphetamine and any type of manufacturing parts for methamphetamine. That is an outdated law. It came out in 2002 at the height of our methamphetamine manufacturing. Senate bill last year, Senate Bill 5010, looked to address that last year, and it passed unanimously to include fentanyl and other synthetic opioids, as we all know, is as dangerous as a loaded weapon on a kitchen table for our kids. It passed unanimously in the Senate, and then it went to the House, and it didn't go anywhere there. So with that, Pierce County at our level, we thought that we really had to get something done, and we passed our own law at the county level to safeguard our children. But we only have, it can only go as far as a gross misdemeanor. And within that new law that we passed, endangerment with a controlled substance, we added in there, and I'll quote, "The county council encourages the state legislators to consider amending RCW 9841-100 to be a Class B felony." So we're looking for the state to update its already existing law to protect our children. Pierce County has had dozens and dozens of children exposed to fentanyl overdoses. It's happening every day. We've talked to our hospitals. Many have died, and that's not including the ones that possibly are, parents Narcan their kids and they never make it to the hospital. So it is an issue, boots on the ground. We need to give tools to our law enforcement and our prosecutors to help protect our children. There's 3 bills that are in the hopper right now that I know of. House Bill 1087, which expands the crime of endangerment with a controlled substance to include fentanyl and high priority synthetic opioids. And another one is House Bill 1159 concerning the crime of endangerment with a controlled substance. And one more, Senate Bill 5071, updating the endangerment of a controlled substance statute. So those are some things to look out for, and we hope that you guys take a hard look at this to help protect our children. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for addressing that important issue, Councilmember Herrera. And we will go back to Councilmember Hitchin, who, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Am I talking about a ferry?
You are talking about ferries.
I'm talking about ferries.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank Rep. Levitt for your leadership and work on this. We hit a snag last year. I feel like we're in a really good place. But the council and the executive are very excited to have this legislation in place that will allow us to do a little bit more in long-term planning around ferry maintenance. And while the partnership with you is greatly appreciated, and please let us know as a council if there's ways we can support. And I know the Anderson Island Citizens Advisory Board is at the ready when it's live to start advocating for that to make it through the process. So thank you for your leadership on that and sponsorship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hitchin, on the ferry maintenance issue. We love talking about ferry issues here at the county.
Oh,
yeah. Rep. Levitt has her
Yeah.
hand up.
Councilmember Morel. Yeah, Representative Levitt up.
Oh, Representative Levitt.
I love talking about ferries too. As it resides in the 28th. It's House Bill 1054. It has been dropped and is being co-sponsored by folks from the 4 counties who will be impacted. And so I would encourage you to get a queue. So as the bill gets scheduled for a hearing, we'll make sure to let you know, but you might also get alerts too, and we'll absolutely need your continued support and testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Representative Levitt. I would like to touch on a subject that is important to the county and been working on for the last 4 years, 5 years, maybe even 6 years since I've been on the council, and that is airport funding. One of the challenges that we have here at the county is we own 2 airports. Tacoma Narrows and the Pierce County Airport, which is affectionately known as Thun Field. The challenge we have with these airports is they run on an enterprise fund. In other words, they have to run like a business. And one of the challenges that we have in funding these airports is they don't make a lot of money. So our challenge has always been capital investment into our airports. And what we're asking for is some flexibility within the REIT excise tax that we can add one word at a minimum to include airports in the capital projects list. Right now, airports are excluded, and there could be a rationale or reason why, but we need that flexibility so we could allocate funds for FAA matches. Currently, we don't have that capacity, and there are projects on the list that we need to get funded on maintenance for our airports that depend on FAA funding. So we need to have the ability to use that REIT, and the council then could make a decision on how they fund out of that REIT airports. So that one is there again. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking that it be included in the RCW 8246 to include airports. And we'll have some language if you need it. I know Councilmember Denson has been working with Representative Dent on this issue, and we will continue to do that. But we will make this a priority of this session, that we get airports included in that language. So thank you. Want to circle back and let Executive Mello talk about the indigent defense caseload standards. So Council, Executive Mello, I'm going through the list. Executive Mello.
Is it on? Thank you. Old habits die hard, Councilmember Morel. Thank you. Coming back to indigent defense, this is an issue that I suspect the delegation has begun to be educated about. Thank you for taking the time to do that. This issue is before the state Supreme Court currently, and I testified on behalf of Pierce County in mid-November on this matter. For those that are newer, real briefly, the Bar Association, the State Bar Association made a request to the state Supreme Court, who is the rulemaking decision maker here, on the caseload that any individual public defender can have at any given time. We call those caseload standards. There's a request to significantly reduce those caseloads, meaning significantly increasing the number of staff in public defender offices. Now, could we do a better job at public defense? Certainly, we could do a better job at lots of things if money was no object, right? We could do a lot better at homelessness and building more affordable housing and paving our streets and fixing our failed bridges and providing transit and so on and so forth, if money was no object. But money is an object, and we live in a very resource-constrained world. I submit to you that while there might be some significant challenges in other counties around the state, around the quality of public defense, I don't know, I'm not an expert in those other counties. But could there be problems in other counties that are really significant that need the Supreme Court's attention or the legislature's attention? Sure. But I submit to you that here at Pierce County, we're doing a pretty good job. Our public defenders, we have a attrition rate in our public defense office of close to 5%, right, leaving any given year. This is resignation or separation, termination, for any number of reasons. 5%, which is really less than the national average. So that's an indicator that life is pretty good as it relates to public defense and the caseload, the quality of life of the important folks doing the work of public defense here at Pierce County. On average, our public defenders here at Pierce County have a caseload where they're delivering 1,800 hours annually of direct public defense. And that is a good national average. So again, I submit to you that it's not broken everywhere, and any kind of solution the state Supreme Court might try to impose would likely be a one-size-fits-all solution, which would have significant impacts to Pierce County. Significant. For example, if Pierce County was directed by the state Supreme Court to implement the caseload standard, therefore significantly increase staffing in our public defender office, in 2025 alone, for the standard that's in front of the Supreme Court today, in 2025 alone, that would be a cost of $12 million of new dollars. 28 new full-time staff. Those are attorneys, investigators, paralegals, legal secretaries. 28 full-time staff in year one alone, to the tune of $12 million. That's every single new dollar of revenue we collect in assumed new revenue and sales tax and property tax. Every single dollar. So leaving no dollars to do anything else for the workforce here, right? Cost of living adjustments, everything else that it takes to run county government. Every single dollar would be dedicated to this one and only one purpose of hiring 28 new full-time staff for the public defender office, if the caseload standards went into place that are before the state Supreme Court. In year 2 and beyond, it would cost $35 million annually, far exceed the amount of new revenue Pierce County has, and we will be cutting across the board if we were forced to do that, to the tune of 184 additional new staff by the end of 2028. So you see why this has our attention. You see why I went to the state Supreme Court and testified and asked the court in their rulemaking authority not to adopt the proposed rules that are there today. Of course, we want high quality public defense. Everyone deserves high quality public defense in our judicial system. So we requested further collaboration and preparation prior to any future mandated caseload standard. I'm happy to talk in detail with you, but this is a really significant issue. If the court makes this decision to change the caseload standard in any meaningful way, you now see that this is going to have significant impacts to our budget. We also don't think, and that those numbers I gave you and the workforce numbers I gave you are simply just for Pierce County, right? The other 38 counties are going to have significant costs and workforce challenges. So, you know, we implore the legislature to get ahead of this issue. We don't think this issue is going away. We implore the legislature to create a work group to really study this issue. We'll have some detailed recommendations if you were to put in place a work group to help really bear down on the workforce challenges, which are different in a rural area than they are in an urban area. We will have detailed suggestions in a work group setting around how to more thoughtfully and responsibly implement any kind of improvement that might be made to caseload standards over a more realistic time period. And we, through a work group, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all rulemaking by the court, we could get at some of the real challenges that I think are very different in, say, Grant County or Yakima County than in Pierce County. Having a one-size-fits-all approach in this regard, we do not think makes sense. It would be very harmful. We would have to cut deeply into our safety net and other core public services if we were forced to do this. We hope you take it very, very seriously. We know you do, but we hope this information we're sharing with you helps you take it even more seriously, and that we can work together to get ahead of this issue that we don't think is going away, of what appropriate caseload standards need to look like for every county, and how to get there. So thank you to our legislative delegation. I'm excited to work with you more deeply on these and other issues. And I just want to come back to the $20 million number I gave to you for our revenue shortfall to do statutorily mandated and core public services. I want to be clear because I know the legislature thinks in biennia. That $20 million is an annual number. So from an annual budgeting perspective, that's a $20 million annual revenue share or new revenue that we need to come up with together from the state. So that 20 million is an annual number, not a biannual number. Thank you, Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Executive Mello. Thank you for clarifying that. The Pierce County also has several capital project funding requests that are highlighted in our priorities document. Among these capital funding acts are funding for community center improvements at Sprinker Recreation Center, funding to advance the design of the Chambers Bay Dam removal, funding to support pre-development activities for affordable housing in Frederickson, and several other priority park and transportation related funding requests. I think our lobbyist Michael Shaw is here and can make sure everyone gets that list. And he has been very informative to help us navigate the legislative process. And we're always grateful for Mr. Shaw's work down in Olympia. So thank you. At this time, I would like to open it up to the delegation. I know that we've shared a lot of information. We do have a lot of anxiety moving forward, but I'm quite sure the delegation also has some feedback and some questions that maybe we could be better partners with collaborating. And as Executive Mello also mentioned, we're more than willing to be a resource down in Olympia to testify and to give information from a local county perspective on any issue. So with that, I would like to open it up to the delegation members to talk about their priorities and any questions they may have of the council and the executive.
Senator Gildon.
So just okay. And we'll start with Senator Gildon.
All right, well, thank you, Councilmember Morell and Executive Mello. I really appreciated your comments and thank you for going down and testifying in opposition to the proposal from the Bar Association to the Supreme Court. I think that would just devastate our legal system if that went through. Going back up to the very top and talking about that $20 million budget gap. As you know, the legislature since 2019 has put a number of items on layaway. And now those bills are coming due and we don't have the money to buy them all. So we're going to have to put some of those items back into the store or, fund them at different levels or whatever the case may be. When people are coming to me this year and they're asking me for state dollars for certain projects, one of the things that I always like to ask them in return is I know that the state is very good at applying mandates and must-do items to cities and counties and such, but we're not very good at removing mandates once they become old, obsolete, or ineffective. And I'm curious if the county has gone through and looked at some of the things that the state has mandated in the past that may be time that we remove because they're no longer effective.
Councilor Morell.
Executive Mello.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Senator. We know you take your job really seriously, and we too are looking at ways we can continue to do work differently across the board, use technology better to save money and reprioritize staffing. So I don't have a list in front of you at this time, but thank you for the invitation. I hear that as an open invitation for items where we believe we might be able to save money and cost and time and efficiency to bring to you good ideas. We will certainly do that. I will ask our staff to begin thinking about that and bring you any ideas that we can identify.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those comments. Representative Levitt.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the great partnership to the council and the executive's office as we go into a tough legislative session, and appreciate Senator Gildon's question. Mine's along the lines of the $20 million. It would be helpful to get a list of what that 20 million would buy for the Pierce County residents. In other words, what would Pierce County residents get as a result of that 20 million and having a listing to view would be helpful. And then on the homelessness front, super concerned that Tacoma has had the unfair share of funding the majority of our shelter beds. And so really grateful that you brought that up, the $9 million. Do you know if there's an effort, whether it's council on the council side or in the executive's office or through this new regional housing group that's being formed, to take a look at that to ensure that Tacoma doesn't end up with the brunt of our homeless challenge that we know that folks are coming from all over the county? Thanks.
Thank you for those comments, and that is a topic at this council, always looking at, equity within how we deal with that issue in particular. But, that will be top of mind as we move forward. It's making sure that fair share is definitely out there. So with that, we have Representative-elect Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to every council member here and Executive Mello. I really appreciate the time and can't wait to partner with you on the challenges we're talking about today. I do apologize for having hopped on late. I am in orientations and do need to get back to that here in Olympia. But I just wanted to first introduce myself. I'm a nearly lifelong Pierce County resident, went to Peninsula High School and have lived out on the Key Peninsula and in the Purdy area for most of my life. And I'm a legal aid attorney. I've practiced at Northwest Justice, also in the Tacoma area, serving Pierce and Kitsap counties. And this will be my first elected office. I do want to work with you all, especially on housing issues. I'm the vice chair on the housing committee. My priorities are to reduce mass homelessness, increase our supply, and find additional protections for tenants, and otherwise make the law make more sense for everybody involved in the system to create access to justice for everybody. And then I'm also serving on the transportation committee. And so ferry issues and transportation issues in general, particularly on our side of the bridge, matter a lot to me. And I on these two fronts, along with public safety, right, finding a solution for public defense. I'm on the workforce and higher ed committee. And so finding more ways to get people through the pipeline, more people in the courts and in court administration roles and everything to help make sure everyone has access to justice is something that I am really concerned about too. And so in each of these things, I do also see an opportunity. I'll just make a quick plug here to use the World Cup in the next summer, really, to make a real push towards solving some of our regional transit, housing, and public safety challenges for years to come, and look forward to more conversations about how we can work together to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your introduction to the Pierce County Council. Look forward to working with you in the near future here. We'll move on to Senator Conway.
Turn on my mic. I want to thank you for this meeting. I think it was very, very comprehensive, and frankly, in many years of service, I don't believe I compliment you on having a meeting of this nature. I think that it's critically important for us to hear from our county in terms of what their needs are, and not just a brief summation of issues, but a very comprehensive analysis. Thank you. I do want to ask a question though about whether these included a request of the prosecuting attorney at Pierce County. And the reason I ask this is that I have a real concern about what's going on with our courts in terms of capacity. And also we've talked about a lot about indigent defense, but that is a part of our court system, and the county is a primary funder. As you pointed out, 75% of your funding is mandated by the state, but it worries me that we have jail capacity issues as well as court capacity issues. And I haven't heard a lot about that. And I realize that, it worries me that there is no consequence for misdemeanor crimes because of the court capacity. And I'm curious about what your opinion is on. The prosecutor attorney has often talk with me about concerns over capacity here in terms of consequences for misdemeanor crimes. And I'm just curious whether, I know this is a critical funding issue, but are we underfunding our court system tragically here and creating some of the criminal justice problems that we're facing? So I guess that's a question for all of you. I mean, is this inclusive of our prosecuting attorneys' concerns about court capacity and our ability, our jail capacity and our ability to manage crime in Pierce County?
Thank you for that question. Councilman, Executive Mello, do you want to address part of that concern? Because it's been an ongoing discussion.
Thank you. I'll briefly respond. Thank you for the observation, Senator Conway. The proposals in front of you are inclusive of the prosecuting attorney's office. We work very closely with Prosecutor Robnett's requests. As I noted, $3 million is for backlog of prosecution. Much of that is are felonies, not misdemeanors, as you noted, but that's a felony backlog caseload to keep prosecutors employed, to keep working through that backlog. $2.5 million of our request is for, like I mentioned, related to complex litigation, related to statute of limitations changes the legislature made recently. So that's to employ prosecutor staff for that statute of limitations change that we are embroiled in as a result for our juvenile justice facility, related to our juvenile justice facility for potential litigation. So those are two very specific financial asks that are included here, but certainly the prosecutor's office is a really important component. When we're talking about needing $20 million additional from the state to pay our basic bills, that certainly includes the prosecuting attorney's office in general. The jail, as you know, is managed by the Pierce County Sheriff. Our jail capacity issues really are a figment of staffing. In order to have a constitutionally sound jail, we have to have a reasonable amount of staffing to keep both the sheriff's deputies staffing the jail safe and the other residents in the jail safe. We can't overpopulate the jail. It would become unsafe for the workers there and the other inmates there. So I don't mean to oversimplify the issue, but our jail capacity issues largely come down to staffing. We have about 45 vacancies in our sheriff's department. We offer competitive wages with more money. Could we compete against King County and other counties more? Probably. It's a tough place to work, as you probably know. So it's hard to recruit folks to work in the jail. Certainly with more financial incentives, maybe we could recruit better and faster. That's a money problem and money that we don't have. So I just wanted to outline for you the real practical considerations of what's happening at the jail and to indicate that, yes, these requests are inclusive of Prosecutor Robnett's requests. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Okay, we will move on to Senator Trudeau.
Hi, everyone. And I don't know if everyone, I apologize. I didn't log in as a panelist. So I was listening in webinar mode. And so I'd heard most of the discussion. And I did want to say thank you. I think this is really helpful to have the conversation, right before session and to at least try to get on the same page about some of the problem statements, even if we're not always on the same page as far as the solution. So I just wanted to express gratitude. The thing I was thinking about actually dovetails nicely off Senator Conway's comments and some of the comments that were made before about, sometimes the state looks at one issue and then doesn't think about sort of the other places or spaces that are impacted by that. And, serving on the Law and Justice Committee with my esteemed colleague, Senator Gildon, one of the things that comes up a lot is, like we talked about enhancing criminal penalties, for example, as one of the priorities presented by the council. But when we think about caseloads and we think about impact, we also have to think about the impact more broadly on the entire court system. So for example, Senator Conway talked about the jail system. I know one of the things that I've been looking at and talking to constituents about is the revolving door, is the idea that we don't really have a sustainable solution. So we can enhance criminal penalties, then whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, do they even end up being incarcerated? If they are incarcerated, do they get services to not come back and be incarcerated again? And so I think sometimes we focus on caseloads and numbers, but public defenders with increased caseloads does have an impact on an individual's access to justice. So in terms of how we think about things on that continuum, I just look forward to working with the council. It sounds like, based on Executive Mello's response to Senator Conway's question, you all are thinking about the whole spectrum. But I think sometimes it's really easy for us to be like, well, we should do this thing because it's a criminal penalty. It doesn't have a cost. But in fact, it does have a cost depending on whether we want it to be meaningful and sustainable, which I think we all do. So I guess as much of a question as a statement and saying, I'd love to stay in connection and communication with you all so that when we are talking about whether it's a criminal penalty or something to do with public defenders or fair share, that we are just talking at the same page and considering the whole spectrum. So sometimes I can take a position where, maybe I take a position on a criminal penalty and people might assume there's some ideological reason. And I think this is going to be a very challenging session. It's going to be very challenging for you all on budgets. And I just think as much as we can depoliticize and have like a real conversation about all of the systems that are impacted, I'm on board. And I just thank you for letting me make that comment / question / appreciation.
Thank you for all of the above. I think one of the things that this council has taken a deep dive in the last 4 years is looking at our therapeutic courts, looking at other programs, because we understand that it ends up, once someone enters the system, it becomes a revolving door for them. They don't know how to get out. This council used our own funding to start a pilot program of a jail to community transition, which is now an award-winning program that we have funded. Even though it's only for 2 years, it is already producing good results. Because we understand we just can't release someone at 5:30 in the morning and tell them, nice to see you, we don't want to see you again, without giving them the resources to be able to start a new life outside of the community that they had before going into the jail. So we have put our money where our mouth is. And if you need some information, I'm quite sure Dominic will bring you up to speed on what our pilot program has entailed. So thank you for bringing that up, because we are aware of that. And we're trying to deal with it at a local level. So thank you. Okay, is there any other comments or questions from the delegation? Not seeing any. I really appreciate your time. I think this is worthy of continuance to engage and be more collaborative. This council's been very good about addressing these issues from a nonpartisan standpoint, because a lot of what we do is nonpartisan. We just do the work that the people expect of us. And this council's been very good at doing that work. So we're looking forward to continued collaboration with our delegation. And there again, extending an invitation that we may call on you for testimony on policy that we're developing. And I would hope that it would be reciprocal when it comes to policy that you develop, that we keep an eye on it through our lobbyist, Michael Shaw, who gives us updates on a weekly basis once you start your work here in January. We also know that it'll be a challenging session. And we look forward to, there again, working together on the issues that are important to your constituents and all of our constituents in Pierce County. So with that, is there any other closing comments that any of the council members would like to make at this time? Okay, there again, thank you for your time. Good luck moving forward and look forward to a successful legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are we adjourned? Are we adjourned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess,